got to talk about our friends over at DraftKings. You know, the leaders in the sports booking realm, the guys that are not only safe but secure and reliable. We talk about them, and we talk about how we got to have promo codes, right? Because if we don't have a promo code, we're not talking about them. So it's this simple. First time users out there. Deke was a first-time user. We all were first-time users. But when it's your first time on DraftKings, if you use the promo code MOATS, simply MOATS, you'll receive up to $1,000 in deposit bonus money. It's a dope concept. It's essentially free money. Just type in the name MOATS and you get free money when you put your money in. Who could beat that, baby? Who could beat that? But when we talk about safe, secure, reliable, this is the app that you want, man. DraftKings Sportsbook, baby. They are number one, and that's why we like them, baby. It's that simple. Yeah. It is that simple. But we do know occasionally people have problems with gambling. We've all had problems. I've had problems.
We want people to have fun gambling.
Yes. And the best way to do that, if you know somebody that has an issue, what you got to do? You got to call 1-800-GAMBLER. Oh, yeah, 1-800-GAMBLER. If you got a problem with gambling, crisis counseling, referral services, call 1-800-GAMBLER. 3 things I like. Now, do we usually do this one at a time or do I just go 3 at a time?
I think we do all 3 at a time.
Okay.
I think we do.
It was a minute. I couldn't remember. So let me check.
You're right.
But for me, the 3 things that I like about this Browns team, number 1 is their running game. I mean, what's not to like about it, right? Whether it was Nick Chubb, whether it was Kareem Hunt, whether it's Dearness Johnson, it doesn't matter. They run that rock. Their O-line moves people, and yeah, it keeps them on schedule. It shortens the game. It keeps opposing offenses off the field. I mean, what's not to like about that running game, right? Regardless of who's at quarterback, they're gonna run that rock, and it's been extremely productive. Second thing I like about that Browns team is Myles Garrett. I mean, he's leading the league in sacks right now, 9.5. Extremely productive player. We know how dynamic he can be. I mean, he's a freak of nature when you look at him from a physical stature standpoint, and he's continuing to play at a high level. He's been doing this now for a couple of years. It's not anything new. He's on the same trajectory. We talk about TJ Watt. He's in those same conversations. Those 2 guys are kind of always going neck and neck right now. So yeah, Myles Garrett is definitely that guy for me. And then the third thing that I like is their identity. They know who they are. I mean, we talk about some of these teams, and even we dealt with this a little bit at the beginning of the season, right? Are we trying to be a passing team? Are we trying to play through Najee? Are we going to play through the tight ends? Like, what is our identity? At times, we don't really know. Cleveland, there is zero debate. It don't matter if it's Baker. It doesn't matter if it is Case Keenum. It doesn't matter if Odell is out there. Team. They're going to be the same. That's their identity. They're going to run this ball. They're going to take a couple of shots with play action, but they're going to run the ball, play defense, special teams. That's who they are. That is not going to change. And to me, that is a strength. When you're able to identify who you are and you're confident in it and you know how to produce in it, man, that's a great situation because you don't have to worry about injuries knocking you off of your pivot. It doesn't matter that Nick Chubb wasn't out there versus the Broncos. They look like the exact same team. It didn't matter when Kareem Hunt was out there. They're like the exact same team. And that's an identity thing. And for me, I think that's a huge, huge element for them, man.
Well, I got basically the same exact thing outside your last one.
Okay.
Running the ball, offensive line, that one's clear as day.
Yeah.
We agree. It doesn't matter who's back there. I couldn't believe Dearness Johnson.
Bro.
Never even heard of him.
Dope.
Never even heard of him in my life. Just rattles off, 130, 140 yards like it was nothing last week.
I ain't gonna lie. Because, that was one of my deathbed days where I was like, I'm alive, but I'm not really alive. He even got a tweet from LeBron. I was like, Lord, Lord. And that's my dog, right? I love me some LeBron. I was like, man, come on, Bron. I'm over here recovering.
What, were you pissed about it?
I was happy and sad at the same time. I was happy that LeBron was tuned in to a young cat like Dearness, who, I mean, they say he was working on a fishing boat, bro. Like, that's crazy. He was in not the XFL. He was in the AA. No, he was in the XFL. Excuse me. It was
either or
XFL or the AAL. He was in one of them leagues doing on a fishing. I'm like, bro, that's nuts. And he balls up. But for Bron to even notice that and be like, let me shout him out. Like, I thought that was dope. But I was sad because I'm like, Bron, I'm recovering. You could have been like, and I hope Moats feels better. But it's all good. Maybe next time, Bron. Maybe next time.
Yeah, so that one, running the ball, their offensive line's pretty damn good. Their offensive line's kind of like where we were at, 2016, 2017. I feel like they probably have the best offensive line in the league right now. Number 2, I'm with you on Myles Garrett. I'm throwing another name in there.
Go for it.
I'm throwing in Clowney. Just edge rushers as a whole.
I mean, he's sitting at 3.5 sacks right now, too.
He is. He's looking good. He's having a little bit of a resurgence this year. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the pure talents finally coming through.
I will say this, watching him versus the Broncos, it kind of like similar thing to what I said when I was breaking out Alex Highsmith. It looked like he was doing less thinking and actually just knowing that, hey, I'm a physical specimen. I'm a big guy. Let me just play to my ability. Let me just go and just, I don't care who's in front of me. I'm going to get home. Nobody can stop me. That was the mindset that it looked like he had. If he plays like that, we got issues. You know what I mean? Like, it's the reason why he got drafted when he got drafted. I mean, we all expected that, but he just never did it consistently. And you always hear my issue with him. I always talk about his motor. I'm like, at times, plays extremely hard, but then at other times, it's like, yo, why are you taking plays off? Why are you? If you're tired, just come out the game. If you don't want to play this snap, come out the game. You're too talented. You're too good of a player to allow people to block you or minimize your impact in games like that. But yeah, this season, man, it's definitely been looking different, man.
Dude, what's hilarious is as I was doing research for this, just trying to see if like, all right, is Jadeveon Clowney like actually for real this year? Yeah. Or are the numbers lying to us? And I think it was on YouTube going back to, was it 2020 or 2019? It was after his Seattle year. Yeah, it was after 2019. It was going into 2020. He had 3 sacks with Seattle. Yeah. He was ranked the 41st player in the NFL Top 100 on the YouTube channel.
Nuts.
Just all based off name. I think I remember us talking about it. It was like, come on, how? How do you have him at 41?
Because I'm just like, great athlete, but doesn't really play to that, to that level all the time. And, I'm not a fan of those type of guys, man. But he's looking good this season, man. 3 sacks
with Seattle, and they put him at 41.
Yeah.
Okay, my last one, though. Stopping the run. This is with the caveat, though, because they've done a pretty good job this year.
Yeah.
They are number 2 in the league at rush yards per game allowed. Yeah. So that's a really nice. Good, that's a nice stat. Yeah. This has a caveat though, because the teams they've played, Chiefs, they're not trying to run the ball.
They're struggling really at running the ball.
Texans, trash.
Yep.
Bears, this was the whole Justin Fields fiasco.
Correct.
Then they played the Vikings. Was Cook even playing that game? Hasn't he been hurt? I don't know.
That might have been his first game. Like, because I remember around that time he was playing. That was one of his games where he was like either going to come back or he was still doing with the ankle trying to make his cuts and stuff.
Chargers, they actually got 112 on them, but they're not even trying to run the ball like that.
And we know Denver, they were struggling.
Yeah, Denver, they didn't even try. They didn't even try. I think they had like 13 carries or something like that for 41 yards. But then Cardinals were able to gash them. So I just think.
But the Cardinals, when I think of the Cardinals rushing, I kind of put them in that Baltimore category of it's a different style.
Okay.
It's not your traditional runs. And with Kyler back there, it changes a lot because you have to account for the quarterback. So that's the only reason why that Cardinals, I'm just kind of like, I'm with you. I'm like,
I just don't think they've played the teams that are really going to test them in the running game up to this point. So that number could be a little bit flawed, but you got to give credit where credit's due.
No, 100%, man.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else with that I wanted to bring up. No, that's about it. I think it's nice what they've done thus far, but it's not saying we're going to be completely stopped by them this game. Kudos to the Browns. Man. But I think going back to what you said with identity, that's another definitely a good one that you could add with this.
Now, as we transition to the 3 things that we don't like about the Browns. 3 things. Let us know in the chat the 3 things that y'all don't like about the Browns, whether it's their quarterback play, whether it's their defense, whatever it may be. Put it in the chat. We will read. All right. 3 things you don't like about those Brownies. You can go first on this one because I went first on what we did like.
All right. Works for me. So number 1, we mentioned great defense, good defense. I think Browns are a pretty solid defense. At the same time, though, they don't get too many turnovers.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. They only have 5 turnovers for the whole season, which is 29th
that is not good.
In the league.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me.
We've had defenses before. What was it? 11 range, 12 range, up to around probably 17, 18.
No, we turn our rock over. That's what we do.
But we didn't get turnovers. It was like for the longest time, we used to never get turnovers. It's over these past 3, 4, 5 seasons where we've really flipped the switch on that. It was like that in-between period where our defense was in our prime, Super Bowl years, and then over the past 3 or 4. And you'll have some good performances, but it gets frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things. I don't know. How do you view like the whole turnover thing? Do you view it more as like a fluke versus like, hey, we're expecting turnovers? Because it's one thing just to be playing solid defense, but to expect turnovers game in and game out.
It's hard to expect turnovers, but at the same time, you feel like you can generate turnovers. Whether it's we're gonna scheme,
we've seen it with TJ.
Right, like you can scheme some things to confuse a quarterback, or you feel like, hey, this edge rusher, he's going to win. But it's not just enough to win. We need strip sacks. That was one of the things that Coach T would always preach to us as outside linebackers. I don't care about you just getting a sack. I need strip sacks. I need that ball back. That was the thing that James Harrison did so well for us, right? We knew he's not going to just get a sack. No, he's getting that ball. That's what TJ does, right? We saw it got us out of that Seattle game, right? That's the other part where you're like, yes, we can get that. We can account for that. Von Miller, he was a prime example of that. You can account for those guys creating those turnovers. So I can agree with you on that, man. Yeah, they do need to get more turnovers. Now, hopefully that's not this week, but going forward, they do need more.
No, definitely not. And I know it doesn't have to be the end-all, be-all, whether you're a good defense or not. But I know for me, at least, sometimes it's nauseating. It's like, we just need a play. We need a turnover. We need a break here.
It gives you the momentum. It gets the offense the ball back. It puts their defense back on the field. Sudden change. I mean, a lot of things happen good for you when you create turnovers.
And they haven't been doing that this year.
Yeah.
Number 2, this one's pretty self-explanatory. Injuries.
Yep.
Here's their report.
It's all bad.
Clowney, ankle, groin, and knee did not practice. Bad. Malik Jackson did not practice.
Yep.
Richard LeCount, he's not even playing. It says not injury related though. Jarvis Landry, knee, did not practice.
And that's not even the hurt knee. That was the other knee. He hurt that in the Broncos game.
Donovan Peoples-Jones, groin, did not practice. Denzel Ward did not practice, hamstring.
Put the boy JOK on IR.
Yeah, he's not even on this list.
Yeah, he's on IR now.
He's not even on this list. Odell Beckham limited, Chubb limited, Conklin limited. Tony Fields, he doesn't really play that much for him.
That's the young cat out of West Virginia. Yep.
I didn't know they traded for AJ Green. Nah, he's their cornerback.
I say stop it.
Baker Mayfield limited. They got Malcolm Smith on there. Treader, Wells. Yeah, a couple people on their offensive line. They were even on the report last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, injuries. That's something I wouldn't be liking if I were them. And then the last one is quarterback.
Which one?
Both. I have both. I have Baker / Keenum because I said it all offseason. Talking with even Browns fans, I'm debating them and stuff, saying, listen, your team's good. You probably have a top 3 roster from top to bottom in the league right now, but your quarterback's going to hold you back. And I feel the same way. I think how the season plays out, Baker, he limits the Browns a little bit, especially when they get in these shootout games against other franchise quarterbacks. When you need a drive, he hasn't been able to perform. I don't think it's him shying away from the moment. I just don't think he has the ability. Yeah. And then Keenum, I don't think there's that much of a drop-off from Baker, but I don't think that highly of Baker. So I feel the same way about Keenum. He's going to limit the Browns. So those are my 3 minuses.
All right. For me, man, the 3 things that I didn't like, I was more specific with the injuries. The skill position injuries.
Okay.
The wide receiver group right now, I mean, literally all of those guys are banged up in some capacity. You just named them off with Donovan Peoples-Jones, with Jarvis, and with Odell. Like, all 3 of those guys are banged up. Even if they make it to the stadium, there's still a legitimate possibility they won't finish the game. Like, that's significant to me, especially when I'm thinking of our defense. And okay, if we know we got to stop the run, but now these receivers aren't as prevalent as they could be, well, what can we do? Now we could do more single high, get another defender in the box. When you have that healthy skill group out there, we talked about Odell 2 days ago. We said, man, even if he's not as productive typically as he is, him being out there makes you have to have a safety over top because you can't single cover him for 4 quarters. You just can't do it. So if those guys are banged up like how they are right now, that's an issue. I don't like that for them. The second thing is, going back to the generating turnovers, I said they're secondary. I think that they're a good group, but they are young, and they do not generate a ton of turnovers. We talk about Denzel Ward, Greedy Williams, Greg Newsome II. I like what those guys are doing.
Troy Hill in the slot.
Yeah, I like what they're doing, but they're not generating those turnovers. And we have seen them be susceptible to some bigger performances. We know Justin Herbert, I mean, he's on a tear this year, but to see that, I'm like, man, that makes you have a little bit of concern.
I do feel a little bit of the same way about their passing game. How I was talking about their run defense or their pass defense. I'm sorry, compared to their run defense.
They've had favorable matchups.
They've just had favorable matchups. It's just that their run defense has been that much better than their pass defense up to this point. That's why I wanted to highlight them before.
And I still, part of me can't get out of my head how Chase and James Washington were able to really get after those dudes last season in terms of that last game. Now, Greg Newsome is new, but Ward was out there. You talk about those safeties, though. Some of those guys were out there. Like, that, to me, I'm just like, like I said, we're going to see. We're going to see. We're going to see. We're going to see if it's as good as advertised. Because I think it's a little questionable. Same way we talked about Denver defense, that's just a tad bit questionable. I think just a little bit questionable. We're going to find out. And then the last one was Jake Conklin, man. Him being injured, the questionable, is he going to be out there? Is he not? If he's not out there, if we're able to stop this run, TJ Watt is going to destroy whoever that is at right tackle. That's the other part for me. I'm like, if he's not available to them at 100% capacity, TJ Watt can have a bigger impact. And he's showing that he's on a tear this season, right? We've seen it. I mean, he showed up in the big moments. We talked about the Seattle game, right? It wasn't the best game across the board, but when it was time to have it, who was making the plays out there? TJ. Who was making the plays out there when we've needed him in the Bills game? TJ. So we know him with an extra week of rest because of the bye week now that Growing should be good to go. Now he should be ready to go out there and continue on this tear so he can go ahead and win that Defensive Player of the Year award. So when I think of that, I'm like, if I'm the Browns or if I'm supporting them, I don't like I don't like Jake Conklin being down like that.
Yeah, no, so, definitely. It's going to be a little D-Poy showdown here.
Absolutely.
TJ Watt versus Myles Garrett.
They're going to both be in the running.
They definitely are.
Yeah, they both in the running, man.
Myles hasn't missed a game, right?
I don't think, or maybe one at best. I don't think so, though.
And they haven't had their bye yet. Yeah. So, because he's at 9.5, TJ's at 7. I'm just trying to get the math in my head where, all right, TJ, you got to catch him a little bit. Yeah. Not necessarily. If you make enough of those strip sack plays, right. Who knows? You take one back to the house. You maybe get a pick or two that Myles Garrett doesn't have.
And TJ has done it in prime time, which has helped TJ out a lot.
You're right. Myles Garrett's 9.5 sacks is kind of under the radar because 5 of them came in that Bears game where everyone was just ripping on what's his fit, the Bears head coach. They were more concerned about that
because it was like, you got to protect this guy. What are you doing? So
Myles Garrett 5 sacks. Right. No, but this is way more on the Bears.
But imagine though if that would have been in prime time. How we talked about TJ. Think about as soon as that game ended for TJ. Everybody just start, oh man, this the guy. Even though all season we've been talking about how great Cam Hayward has been playing, right? That moment in prime time, it just magnifies it. Myles hasn't had that moment just yet. So as long as that's still happening, he can fly on the radar with all them nice stats. It's kind of what we talk about with Chandler Jones. We say, man, Chandler, when he's healthy and he's doing his thing out there, he's dominant. But no primetime game, nobody sees him. Nobody talks about it to the same extent.